mean, you just can't recapture the golden nature of these broadcasts.
I know. That's the problem. Good morning. Welcome to Caffeinate Your Career. Today's topic, let's talk about your resume.
Yeah.
I'm your host, the career coach with the most, Jason Hopper. With me again, back again. In fact, we got Scott all month, is the world famous talent acquisition specialist, Scott Butnick. Scott, welcome back to Caffeinate Your Career.
Pleasure to be here with you, Jason, and to be with everybody on LinkedIn this morning.
Scott, just in case we had new people or somebody else popped in, give everybody your elevator speech real quick. Let us know who you are.
I'm the backpacker slacker. No.
That's not bad. I like it.
Retired recruiter, mostly in financial services. Had a great time hunting down the right people. I believe in take your job seriously, not yourself. And I always felt like my job was to help people grow their career, help my company solve problems with the right people, but at the same time, help people grow their career. And I'll let others judge whether I had any success at it, but that's what I set out to do each morning.
You had, what, 20 plus years as a recruiter? Is that right?
Yeah. Real close to 30, actually, when all is said and done.
Yeah. And so, so Scott, you're on the practice interview team that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, you saw just resumes that we'll say needed a little improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were like, let's do the podcast on resumes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sounds cool. And we haven't done an episode on resumes for a while. So it was a good timing in bringing that back. Let's start with format. What would be, in your opinion, as a recruiter, a good resume format?
The word that comes to mind, Jason, is clean.
Okay.
Clean. Simple, clean, clear, concise. I think that about says it. I think anything else just is going to build on that and is going to get redundant. But it is true if you've read in the online journals or recruiters will tell you their days are pressed, and my days generally were compressed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yet a good resume that tells a good story in a couple of pages, and we could talk about that, it will light me up. But the ones that are overdone or overblown, or you try, for lack of a better term, people try to get too cute.
Mm-hmm.
That's unless we're sourcing a graphic artist job or maybe a creative writing, but not even that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got to think about you got to try to put yourself a little bit in the shoes of the person that's looking at your resume. And you can usually assume whether that person's a recruiter or a hiring manager, that they're not going to have much more than 30 seconds to look at the resume.
Yeah, it's going to be very fast. So when you talk about clean, Scott, I think it's important to have the headings.
Yeah.
Right. It's important to make sure that your bullet points
Right.
your details really are bullet pointed.
points.
It's easier for us to read.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this. And as recruiters, or you can chime in, but when I was coming up and I was being trained, I was trained to read resumes in like a Z pattern. Just
Really?
Okay. So top, scan, bottom, and then back up, and then reverse Z back up. And this is all happening very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what you want is those types of keywords that are going to be able to really make my eye pop, and I think, oh, okay, this might be a resume that I really want to look at. When we talk about resumes and recruiters looking at resumes, and you can tell me your process, but I've had other recruiters tell me this is how they work as well, which is I'm going to just basically scan, just really like quickly, just scan. And then if I think I have enough keywords or I think that this person can do the job, I'm going to take it and we don't print a lot of paper today, but back in the day, I would print out resumes and I put them into the good pile. Right. And once I had about 10 to 12, then I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and then actually read and digest the resume.
Oh, okay, like that. Yeah, I think I don't know if I ever thought of it as a Z pattern, but when you use the word scan, it is a scan. But I think if I reflect back on my days looking at resumes and then contacting people to screen them, I don't know that it was a two-step. If it was, whatever works is what's important.
Yeah.
But for me, I could look at a resume, and it's the reason I've shared this before on some of the mock interviews. What you have to think about with the resumes, you have to give me. You don't have to, but you want to. Is give me a compelling reason to speak to you about this job.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you, within the context of a discussion about a resume, if you fill your resume with superfluous information that either distracts me from that mission or just doesn't convey enough urgency, then you're going to get in the second pile that we haven't discussed. Right? But
right.
It's not a person. When I say you have to give me a compelling reason, don't misinterpret that personally. Give the recruiter and or the hiring manager a compelling reason to talk to you. And those are the ones that I picked out and called. If somebody was close enough, okay. To the extent that you want to, as a recruiter, you want to present a diverse slate of candidates to the hiring manager. So somebody who's close, but maybe the resume doesn't scream it the way the first 4 or 5 did, then I'll pick that sixth one up and call that person and set up a time to talk. But it for me, I could generally see it. I was comfortable with the job families that I was working in. So I knew, I don't mean to brag, I hope people don't misinterpret that, but I knew what the hiring managers were because I had been a hiring manager in the financial services industry.
Well, I mean, that just goes back to being good at what you do. You need to understand what the hiring manager wants, what they want.
That's right.
Otherwise, you submit candidates and they're like, I don't like these, get me 5 more, right? Like, but that's just part of it. And so, Scott, how many bullet points do you suggest people have for each employer on their resume? Do you have a limit, do you think? I do, but I want to know what you think.
It's an interesting question. I will say this. I don't know that I've ever thought about the specific number, but I will tell you that you should have a declining number of bullet points per job as you go further back in time.
Yeah, sure.
I've seen resumes where people have 7 or 8 bullet points for a job that they did 10, 12 years ago. And whether I'm going to coin a term here, whether we call it recency, relevance, recency, currency, that matters. Okay.
Yeah.
The currency, how soon, how recent in the past you use those skills is important to the hiring manager because he or she's looking for that new approach.
Yes.
Right? So if current job, as I ponder your question, Jason, and I said it's a good one, maybe 5 or 6 bullets for that first one, and then a declining number the further back you go in time.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think just as important as the number, and I know you're going to ask me this because we've talked about this every time resumes come up, the number of bullets is important because that's going to help you edit your resume, and we can talk about that. That's really important. But also what you say in those bullet points.
Yeah.
And to put it simply, tell me what you accomplished. don't tell me what you did. So many people want to tell recruiters, at least me, I'm assuming other recruiters have had the same experience. So many people want to tell me what you did. I don't really care, and neither does the hiring manager, what you did. In technical jobs, it gets different. But, and like a networking job, they want to know that you have those certifications, and those things are important. But I also want to know, okay, even in a technical job, if you had that certification, how did you leverage it to accomplish something meaningful?
Yeah.
Tell me that in a bullet point.
Well, I've seen some resumes where the candidate had bullet points that were like 4 to 4 inches, just like all the way down the page,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of it too, to your point, was like it's the what you did,
Yeah.
right? And recruiters, hiring managers, they don't care what you did. What they want to know is how you did it and what's the result of it. Why are we doing this thing, right? Because there may have been something on your resume that you're just like super happy and proud about, right?
Yeah.
But if it's not something that the hiring manager needs, nobody cares. Right?
The term I like to use is it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
And that hurts. I know it
100%,
hurts to be
right?
told you're irrelevant, but it's just the solid basic truth. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. And the same can be said, and I'll leverage this opportunity to make another one of my favorite points. Pardon me, is in your bullets and throughout your resume, don't write narratives. Okay? I want to hear your story. If your resume meets the job the right way, I'm interested in hearing your story. That's when you give me and the hiring manager narratives. But leave narratives out of your resume. I'm old school enough to remember Dragnet. And Joe Friday used to say, just the facts, please. That's what I want on your resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just real quick in the chat. Good morning, Gail. Thank you for tuning in, and everybody that is watching live. If you have questions for me and Scott, I will try and monitor the chat. But it's been quiet right now. Scott, so a lot of people, and you mentioned it earlier about being a graphic artist, but I've seen even just like up to like a week ago, where a client had a resume and it was in a template. But it was the way it was formatted, which just really kind of wonky. Like experience was over here, and over here on the right next to it was a dividing line, and there were some skills listed out, and like it was just format wise a big mess.
Yeah. There's a lot of chatter online, Jason, and I know you're familiar with this, about how do I do an end run around the ATS?
Yeah.
I don't know that any of us can tell people. Maybe there are people that know, but my suggestion to people is stop worrying about doing an end run around the ATS and worry about screwing up. And if it was an R-rated show, I'd use a different word. Screwing up the ATS. And the best way to screw up the ATS is to use a lot of graphics.
Yeah.
Okay, it is. And because the ATS can't scan it, it can't read it. And what'll happen is, and believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen resumes like this that go along with a decent start, and then somebody tried to use graphics, and the word you used, it gets very wonky. It looks like gibberish. I don't have time for it.
Yeah, it goes nowhere. So we're going to talk about the ATS, but let's jump to that right now since it popped up. So what actually happens when you upload your resume into a employer's website that happens to use an applicant tracking system, applicant tracking software?
Yeah.
What it does, well, let's actually start from the beginning. So what happens is the hiring manager or HR or the recruiter or whomever will put the job into the software, right?
The opening.
And then it will scan the job posting, and then it comes up with and creates
Right.
what it thinks is an ideal candidate.
More now because of AI than even 3 years ago.
Correct.
Yeah.
AI has gotten a lot smarter, but every form of the ATS has some AI in it. All of it. And it has for years.
Yeah, that's true.
And so then you start to apply to positions, and what the software does is it scans your resume, and then it's going to go and parse it and put it into fields where it thinks things are supposed to go. Now, this is the reason why graphics don't work, because it does not, or I'm sorry, they're getting smarter, guys,
Well,
but most of them still do not recognize graphics. If you have a template, templates basically are boxes that you just plug information into. The ATS, all of them, cannot scan what's in the box. It's outside of the actual
Right.
document.
right.
Same thing for headers, footers. Those are outside the actual document. And so after it scans it and it parses it into different places, then if it does think it's a match, you move up into the top of the ranks of what the recruiter will see. Now from there, the recruiter, and they all, guys, it's a huge business. The last time anybody counted, I think there were like 285 different versions of ATS out there, right?
Yeah.
But some of the more popular ones like Bullhorn or when they do it and the recruiter sees it, then it's the recruiter's responsibility. It's either red, yellow, green,
Yeah.
or yes, no, maybe,
Right, yeah.
and it's the recruiter that's saying yes or no and rejecting it. But it has to match up with enough keywords to get it to that point where the recruiter sees it.
It helps, which I know for the people watching this morning. Okay, so what are the important keywords? I don't know that either. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, and that's why I say, don't try to outsmart or outrun or do an end run around the ATS. Tell me what you've done. Tell me what you've accomplished. Make it clear. Make it concise. And if you apply to the right job, we talked about this too over the times that with mock interviews and with this program. If your background is in accounting and you apply for a job as a nuclear physicist, you're probably not going to get interviewed.
No.
Okay, and that's an extreme, but if you're qualified to do something, I mean, again, that still doesn't guarantee you're going to get interviewed, but your odds are better.
Yeah. Well,
Your chances are better.
the software is actually designed to block like 97% of the people that apply. Right.
Yeah.
And you were talking about keywords. I mean, there's many ways that you can look at that. Just like if you want to just study the job description and what things or keywords are repeating, right? If it's repeating, that's probably something that you want to do. Now you can't. There's a couple things you can do. Like you can just ask AI to compare
Nothing to lose.
the job posting to your resume.
Copy and paste it into the AI, and
Or or you save the doc and just upload it. Sure.
Yeah.
Either way, it will tell you or make it ATS compliant.
Yeah.
Provided that you can do that job, then you're qualified to do the job. One thing I would recommend is anything that AI spits out, you need to go over it with a pretty fine-tooth comb to make sure that it didn't add anything.
Right.
Or, put things in there that you don't know how to do.
Right.
Because if it's on the resume, they want you to be able to speak to it.
Right. And you run the risk of embarrassing yourself in an interview. Okay. And once it's very, very difficult to reclaim your credibility as a candidate once you've lost it. Is it impossible? It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it happen.
Well, and to get to that point, you have to make sure that your resume is clear in its message. Good morning, Yolanda Chen. Yes, Rhonda Robinson's in the chat. She said that bullet points are easier to read than paragraph. Yes, just in general, as humans, we consume information differently, right? If I see posts like on LinkedIn or even on a resume, if I see a resume and it's just a blocky chunk of words, I'm not going to read it.
Right.
I'm just not.
Exactly.
Like we consume information and we want to consume information quickly. And so, here's a good example. Go look at my post today on LinkedIn. Everything was about one line, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's quick and easy to read. Yeah. That's what we want. That's what recruiters want. Things that are quick and easy to read.
I always thought that was because you only think one line at a time.
I'm slow that way. Good morning, Chandra Thomas. And Gail said, AI may be getting smarter, but lacks an actual human. You do need the human in there, especially in the recruiting process. I don't think that it's going to be automated enough that we're going to lose recruiters. We're just not.
No, I happen to think I'd be very surprised if AI completely dominates and takes over the recruiting function, because one thing I've always maintained is recruiting is an art, not a science.
Yeah.
It's too much about human interaction on some level, at least for the jobs that are meaningful. Okay. If I'm going out there looking for 500 call center associates, still somewhat important, but perhaps less so. But if I'm looking for a new VP of marketing, I'm not going to rely just on the AI to make the people call for me. Okay. The one thing I wanted to mention, Jason, if we can digress, and I apologize for this, but when you talk about the look of a resume and the effectiveness of a resume, I still like to go back to a very core learning of mine, which was in an advertising class where the teacher talked about billboards.
Okay.
And I would like to impress upon the folks watching today, look at think of your resume and look at it like a billboard. Why? Because this professor said to us, when you see a billboard, particularly on a highway, which is where you see most billboards, they shouldn't have, and this is Madison Avenue, shouldn't have more than 7 words. Why? Because if you got 65, 70, 75 miles an hour, you don't have time to read more than 7 words.
That's right.
Right? Now, I have time to read more than 7 words on your resume. But think of your resume in relative terms like a billboard. That person looking at it only has so long to look at it, and you've got to find a way to make your point. And that's the challenge. Is it easy? Not necessarily, which is why it's good to have somebody else look at your resume, because someone else will edit your resume more objectively than you will yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. But think of it like a billboard. All you want to do is get the person's attention and tell them, I can solve your problems. And if you say, but I want to be able to tell the person how and why, I get that. And I love that. But do that in the interview.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I never thought about that, but I that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as I'm driving into work, if I'm paying attention and looking at billboards,
as you're smacking into the car in front of you.
No, you know what? I have a smart car, and if I get anywhere close, like on the speed I'm going to the car in front of me, it pops up in red.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I better get off the gas.
Yeah.
And if I'm backing up and a car's coming, it will automatically stop me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I drive a Mini Cooper.
There you go.
Scott, this comes up a lot. A lot of people are trying to cram 10 plus years experience into one page, because somebody told them that, right? How long do you think a resume should be?
So the straight answer, what is it? The visceral answer to that is not more than 2. I've seen some. If you have a 3-page resume, you better have had a really dynamic career.
Yeah.
Okay, something that soaks information that is so compelling that it can't be left out. But generally, for me, the standard is 2, and for an entry, I hate the word entry level. For a recent grad, 1 page. That's probably, you shouldn't try to stretch your resume either, because it's going to be superfluous.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be a lot of irrelevant information. So don't go that way. But I really believe, Jason, that if you can't tell and here's the deeper meaning. If one of the things that the hiring managers I've always worked are looking for are people who can be expressive and articulate, but concise. If you can't tell your story in 2 pages on a resume, you're immediately telling me that conciseness is not one of your strong suits. And you better have a wildly compelling reason to have a 3rd page. I know there are different schools of thought out there. The other thing is the thing I see, and again, I'm going to harp on this. I really think this is important, folks, is resumes that go 2 pages have too much narrative. You're telling me a story. The resume is not the place to tell me your story. That happens in the interview, okay? And I've actually seen in the mock interview program 5 and 6 page resumes, either way too much white space, which is a turnoff.
Oh yeah.
Or way too much, any narrative is not good narrative. Billboard. You wouldn't see narratives on a billboard. Keep thinking billboard.
When I was a recruiter, if I had a resume that was more than 2 pages, I just stopped reading.
Generally.
Because if you, all I want to know as the recruiter is, can you do this job? Right. Can you solve my problem? Right. And if I can't figure it out within 2 pages, you don't have a very clear resume.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm just going to hit delete and move on to the next 100 that I have.
Everything you use to market yourself, to promote yourself, says something about you. It doesn't necessarily say something about your character, but it might say something about your personality. And again, it's like the person that does a 4-page resume sits down, gets an interview, sits down with the hiring manager, and the hiring manager says, so tell me about a time that you had a difficult client. And you're right. It's one of my favorite behavioral questions. Mm-hmm. And you go on for 15 minutes with your answer. I'm thinking as the recruiter, that's why I don't let someone with a 4-page resume interview. Okay? Because they can't tell a concise story.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think when we look at the bullet points and things that should be on the resume, that it's important to make sure that you're quantifying things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because
tell me what you accomplished.
Yes.
Yeah. And give me some numbers. Recruiters dig numbers, but hiring managers love numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They love to see that. And they're going to ask you what you have to be prepared to do then. Okay. I got a 22% increase in customer service scores or sales increase. Now you have to be prepared to talk about the how and the why.
That's right.
But in the interview, do that and yeah, have some stories. The minute the recruiter says, we want to set you up to talk to so-and-so, you got to start thinking about the stories you're going to tell. And you say, well, I don't know what questions, that's not relevant. You have to know you're supposed to know all the answers and have the stories ready.
I think that I like to compare the actual interview. We're going to go down the rabbit hole for a minute because you opened that door. But the interview is kind of like a test that you have the answers to.
No argument. It is a test.
You can't know everything that they're going to ask. You can't.
Yeah.
However, they could ask, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
They could ask, what skill are you working on improving? They could ask, tell me about a time you had a difficult client. How did you resolve? There are kind of standard questions that recruiters are going to ask, and you need to know and be prepared for them along the way, right? Yeah. And so the resume can get the door open. But you have to walk through it.
That's exactly what a resume does. It opens the door. And it ties back to something that I feel strongly about is, that old, it's an old 1-liner, 2-liner. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's how you get a job. Keep your goals simple. What's the resume for? To get the interview. What's the interview for? To get another interview. What's the next interview? All you want to do, keep your goals simple, keep the process alive. Because as long as the process is alive, you're a candidate until they tell you you're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why, look at your resume, and again, bullet point number 1, billboard. Bullet point number 2, get you the interview.
So I'm going to back that up. So there's a question in the chat. Well, I'll get to that in just one second. But I'm going to back that up real quick, Scott, because you're right. You're a candidate until you're not. You're either hired or they went with somebody that was a better fit. Yeah. Now, even if that is the case and you still want to work for that company, I think it's a great idea in 4 to 6 weeks to follow up.
Oh, absolutely.
And see, like anytime you have an interview, I don't care if it's virtual, you go in, you sit down with somebody, but if you're sitting down and having a conversation with somebody, that should be a warm lead always, provided you still want to work there. And so, follow up. And so much happens in the follow-up.
That relates to last week's presentation about networking. That becomes a networking opportunity. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong and nothing to lose by writing a hiring manager 2 months later. Dear Jason, I so enjoyed learning about XYZ company's approach to growing the business. And I know that it's okay to say I know I wasn't selected, but I'm always interested in learning more about what the opportunities might be like down the road. It just connects you. Jason may not write back with an invitation to have a cup of coffee, but if Jason's what I would call a mensch, he's at least going to acknowledge your email.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. It was nice to talk to you as well. Let's keep in touch. That's probably the most you can expect. But you have nothing to lose by doing that, folks.
By the way, I am a mensch. A mensch is like a good fella, a nice guy, right? So in the chat, Gail asked, how does one quantify if one doesn't keep notes of such? Good question.
Good question. And my answer is you should. Okay. Keep, that's a really good question because I've confronted that with candidates. I learned myself. You need to keep a feel-good file.
Yeah.
You get emails, you get recognition, certification, maybe sometimes of accomplishments in certificate form or just an email. But also, when you've accomplished something, you should have, if you need to write it down, fine. Usually look at your reviews. And I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
What I would submit to you is if you're working now and you're not getting that, then you need to have a conversation with your boss. And that's a friendly conversation. Hey, Jason, I wondered, so it's our one-on-one. Jason, I'm always looking for feedback because feedback is the way we get better. What can you share with me over my last 6 months' performance? Now, if all Jason comes up with is negatives, then maybe you ought to look for a job, okay? But what Jason should do is he may have to go back and say, hey, let's get together. We'll recircle on this in a week. Let me pull some information together. You have to be reasonable because Jason's got 6 of you or 8 of you, and he's juggling and he's hearing from the CEO about something he needs to accomplish and an initiative. Give him time, but you should be able to get some feedback. You own that, ladies and gentlemen, not Jason. You own your career. And if you own your career, you'll know what your accomplishments are, just like you'll know what your opportunities are. But your question is about accomplishments. You need to know what those are, and you need to be able to go back on them. And then when the time comes, okay, it's time for me to tune up my resume. Hey, so effective communication leadership skills led to a 28% increase in sales over the previous 1 year or YOY or 6 months, whatever that bullet point looks like.
Yeah, you need to remember, Gail, so good question. And you need to remember when we're going to quantify things, it does not have to be money.
No.
It could be time. It could be it could be a number of people you've trained. It could be that
I tell you what, I've seen this a few times. Managers have talked about how many people got promoted because they worked for that person. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, now you've got leadership skills, you've got developmental skills.
Or one of the things I like quantify, it's like, okay, well, last week's Caffeinate Your Career had 108 views on it. So 108 people saw the live stream, and we screwed up the podcast last week and didn't record it. That was my fault. That was all on me.
We only know that because 108 people went looking for anti-nausea medicine.
So we are recording today. The podcast will be up by the end of the week for sure. Sandra Dixon said, what if you're not at the company anymore? I guess it's in reference, Scott, to you keeping a feel-good file as you were going.
No reason you can't keep the information. When you get a performance review, you should at least have a soft copy or a hard copy of it that you can refer back to. Okay, and look, what we're not saying here is, and probably needs to be said, is when you're on your job, the way you're thinking about your future is, I need to accomplish something. We've talked about this, Jason. I need to add value.
Yeah.
And accomplishments they better add value. If you're accomplishing things and you're not adding value, again, tune up your resume and start looking for a job.
Jim Warner always reminds us that, while you're there in the job, to start asking for those recommendations, right? Because, hey, am I doing a good job? Can you recommend me on LinkedIn?
Because the alternative is important too. If I'm not, tell me what I need to do. When you go for a promotion and you're not selected, the question for your manager is, what do I need to do to be ready the next time an opportunity comes available? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. And you know what? You may cringe a little bit at the answer. And to that, I say, never ask a question if you're afraid of what the answer might be. Okay? And if we had enough time, I could tell you a good story about that, that actually qualifies that. Never ask a question when you're afraid of what the answer might be. But generally, though, the answer is something that's going to help you grow. And that's what reviews are supposed to be about.
I was reminded, you said that, and I was reminded of a quote, my friend G, who's an HR, she's a fractional HR person, and she always says, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Right. And like, hopefully, if that's the case, you're in a position where people are enjoying you and the work that you're doing.
And then you know what? That's a good point, because then you'll have a feel-good file. They'll let you know. Yeah. They'll let you know.
Well, and a good leader should also tell you, like, when you're not performing to the expectation, so that you can do better.
The other thing that knowing what your accomplishments are about helps you do is it helps you understand your job. And a hiring manager is going to probe in certain ways. And I can't tell you exactly what to look for. But people that knew their job, that know their job, are better candidates than people that don't.
Sure.
I'll tell you one of the ones that's a tip-off is that one that we've already talked about. Tell me about a time you had a difficult customer, a difficult client, a difficult partner, a difficult teammate. Because everybody's had somebody. If you haven't had somebody like that in one of those milieus, so to speak, then you haven't engaged enough.
Yeah, okay? I think so. I think and when we talk about you being able to tell your story or convey the things that you could do, you need to remember that the resume itself is not about you.
Right.
It's about, can you solve the problem for the employer?
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of people misunderstand that, and they get caught up in the things that they can do or they did versus how it is they can solve that problem.
Accomplishment versus activity.
Well, I recommend to my clients, as far as the format goes for the resume, is you put up at the top is add those core competencies that are hopefully the skills they're looking for, with a statement behind it on how you could that you could quantify to show that you are able to solve the problem.
Agreed. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the offset to that, Jason. And I'm not countering
That's fine.
But
You
just
don't
a
have to agree,
caveat
but, like,
for people to do that on a resume is don't put in your in that summary or that list of things that you do well. Okay, is I'm a team player. Okay.
oh yeah.
Or I follow and take direction well. I'm going to find out if you can't do those things. Those kinds of things should not be in that list of competencies.
No,
Okay? And people do that.
yeah.
Right?
It's if you're gonna just add something general, don't.
Don't. Yeah.
Don't. Because I see that sometimes like, well, I'm an individual contributor, but I also work well in teams.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
do you really? That's you're just talking at me and adding, like, you're not adding no value at all to your resume.
Don't tell me here's an example. The the yes and the no. Don't tell me in your competencies that you're a great leader and a coach. Tell me in your resume that you led and or coached people who saw X amount of career progression in their careers. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes the difference is the result part and how you were able to move the company forward, because that's all that they care about.
Yeah.
When you get down to it.
And to find out whether what you're putting in a resume is superfluous or not, have somebody else look at it for you. Somebody you trust. Okay, you've got to trust that person, and that's important. All right, but I don't think we're the best editors of our own resumes.
No,
we're really not.
100% not. So Scott, we're at time.
Okay.
That went very fast. We did not. We talked about it a little bit. We didn't really do the commercial for the virtual interview practice program. So if y'all didn't know, we have a virtual interview practice program. I just said that. Said it again because it's worth repeating. VIP squared is what we call it. What happens is you will log on. I will put you and the interviewer into a breakout room. They will interview you for 30 minutes. Then there will be 15 minutes of feedback, and then you're done. You can log out. You're done for the day. By the end of the week, the interviewer will have sent me a feedback form, something that is you might find interesting that you will have to improve on your interview skills. Okay. Scott's on the interview team. If you want to interview with Scott, I think you're available next week.
I'm punishing. I'm just warning you.
Let me know. How do you get in? How do you get into the virtual interviews? You need to email me. My email is my name, Jason, Jason Hopper, Hopper, Jason Hopper at jfsdallas.org. Put VIP2 in the subject line. I'm going to need your resume. I'm also going to need a job title that you want to interview for. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to AI and have it list, like if you're an accountant, list interview questions for an accountant position. And there they are. The interviewer will ask you questions directly from that page. Again, we want to make this as real as possible. If you're also wondering, like, what's the cost on that? Right now, free. It's free for the moment. And so you want to get in on it. You want to get some. That's the other thing too. Like, you could go interview wherever, and you could ask for feedback.
If you get hired, there is a virtual tip jar for the mock interview.
but they're not going to give you feedback. But my team will.
It does add value, folks. I say that not on my own behalf, but on behalf of Jason and the entire team. We've seen real life situations where this adds value for people.
Well, that's the part of that is interviewing is a skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And don't wait. Don't sleep on it. Don't wait until I have an interview next Thursday. Can I get in on the practice interviews Tuesday? That's when we do. I'm sorry, Tuesdays at 1:00 Central Time. That's when we do practice interviews. And I'll be like, no, I'm full up. I'm almost a week out. So next week I have 4 spots available. If you want it, email me. First come, first get. But it is for sure a great way to improve your skills.
And you can interview over and over. There are different people on the team, and you can get some valuable different perspectives that way.
I have 8 people on the team right now. Mm-hmm. I just added one more. So 8 people. That's 8 different people you can interview with, 8 different personalities. Everybody's different. But if you want to do it, email me. Get on it now. Scott, fun question for the day.
This is where the pressure starts.
Everything else is gravy up until then, right?
Everything else is easy.
Okay. So, what is your favorite animal?
favorite animal.
I didn't tell him what the question
No,
was.
he never does.
I never do. That's why it's fun.
My favorite animal? I mean, the easy answer, the one that comes to mind first is a dog,
Okay.
because dogs are friendly. And we used to have a basset hound that we all loved. We have a bunch of bunnies that hang out in the alley behind my house. They're kind of cute with their fuzzy little cottontail running and getting out of the way of a car usually.
Hopefully.
So those are I mean, I like to look at, I certainly wouldn't want to be a big cat's lunch, but I love looking at big cats. There's a place up in Plano or Wiley. I think it's in Wiley.
Yeah.
The Big Cat Park, where they rehabilitate some big cats that are just magnificent to look at.
Yeah. They're really cool. I'm going to say, in that vein, cheetah. Because cheetahs are fast.
Yeah.
And I'm fast.
There you go.
All right. Next week, Scott will be back, and we will be talking about... Do you remember what we're talking about next week?
No, I only remembered what we're talking about this morning.
I think
you can see we do a lot of preparation.
we do a lot of prep. I've got notes. We got a lot of prep.
He does.
I forgot what we're talking about next week.
Baseball.
But it'll be damn entertaining. So come back and see me and Scott next week. In the meantime, this has been Caffeinate Your Career. Bye.